At this point in my life, I have played 6 different versions of Ys III. It's one of those games that was released on pretty much every single platform available in 1991, and then later on ported to some that weren't available at that point, and then it got remade and re-released on a bunch more platforms. Ys III was one of the most hotly anticipated titles of 1991, and the first video game console to get a version of it was the PC Engine. It got a 3-month jump on Nintendo's brand new Super Famicom, 6 months on the original Famicom version, and 8 months on the Mega Drive version. Ys was one of the big franchises from computer game developer Nihon Falcom. In early 1991, they were still the biggest name in Japanese computer game development, and had yet to release a single console game of their own. However, there had been a lot of ports. Most notably when it comes to the PC Engine, Hudson had ported Ys 1 and 2 onto a single CD release. And there's a decent case to be made that Ys 1 and 2 was the single biggest reason that the PC Engine CD caught on. Ys 1 and 2 is also the reason that Falcom was willing to work with Hudson again, and why it was Hudson that got to publish Ys III on the PC Engine. The development of the original Ys III for computers is a bit notorious, since 3 months before the game was released, almost the entire team quit Falcom. They made their own company, Quintet, who would develop things like the ActRaiser series. So if you play Ys III and think, wow, this feels like it's kinda rushed together in a slapdash manner, well, that's because it was. For the PC Engine version, I want to get one thing out of the way really quick. There is one portion of the game that looks completely atrocious. The visuals are headache-inducing. The kind of thing that makes you seriously question the technical competence of the people who worked on it. And unfortunately, that portion of the game is the main town. My guess is that they copied the parallax scrolling routines from the computer versions, except in 1991 on Japanese PCs, this kind of bad choppy scrolling was considered to be acceptable. So the very first portion of the game that you're playing looks hideous. And you'll keep coming back there and going, boy, this looks ugly. There's a few other places in the game that look rough like this, but none of them as bad as the city, or at points where you'll keep going back to them. The plot of the game is that Hadal and Dogi, after they've had their adventure on the lost continent of Ys, head back to Dogi's hometown. And as it turns out, there's a lot of monsters hanging out around there. One of Dogi's old friends is missing, and there's a revival of a Demon King on the way. It's the kind of thing that's become old hat for Adal at this point. Naturally, as a CD game, most of the cutscenes are voice acted, but they make an interesting choice for Adal. Nobody is playing him. Instead, a narrator tells you what he generally says. Things like, Adal greeted the guard, rather than having Adal just say hello. That was changed in the US version. Although the text still reflects the narrator, Adal now has a speaking role. And yes, the US voice acting is pretty bad.
Oh, excuse me.
Hey, why don't you look where you're going?
Say, aren't you Dogi?
The notable thing about Ys III is the change of perspective. Ys 1 and 2 were played from an overhead view with combat that involved you bumping into monsters. Ys 3 is a side-scrolling platformer where you have to swing your sword. Notably, it's the only Ys game that has this side view. As you'd expect, button 2 attacks and button 1 jumps. You can also scoot along the ground by pressing into down diagonal directions, and stab along the ground there. And while jumping, you can stab up and down. Pressing run will use the item that you have equipped. Usually that will be a healing herb. While select will bring up a menu where you can change your equipment, as well as save your progress. You can save your game virtually anywhere in Ys 3, and that becomes kind of important since stumbling into the wrong area is pretty quickly fatal in Ys 3. And there are no continues. After the game over screen, you go back to your previous save. So this is a game where you need to save early, save often. You can also acquire magic rings that do some special effect, like increase the power of your attacks or reduce the damage you take. While the rings are equipped, your ring power is quickly draining away, and you recharge that by defeating enemies, or by getting it topped off to 255 points while in town. The game is broken up into unique dungeons, so you'll leave town, travel to the edge of the screen, and then you'll get a world map where you can select the location to travel to. For the most part, you only have to travel to a location once. Once you've cleared any bosses and story elements there, there's no need to go back. Okay, there is some backtracking that you'll want to do, but it's all in that time frame when you're clearing the dungeon. Otto's health quickly recovers once he leaves the dungeon area. Not just when he's outside, because otherwise there's locations within some dungeons where he'd restore life. You have to go back to the entrance of the dungeon, step outside, watch the health bar grow, and then you can go right back in and fight some more. And of course, if you've gotten enough cash, you might want to go back to town to upgrade your equipment or purchase a few more supplies. Combat in Ys 3 has a few quirks that really get pulled out when you're fighting bosses. You see, neither you nor enemies really have invincibility after getting hit. Instead, there's a little bit of knockback. If you're the one doing the hitting, then that knockback prevents you from going into the enemy and getting hit yourself. But some moves, particularly the up and down stabs, stay out. And as a result, if you time your attacks with those and press toward the enemy, then you'll get a lot of damage in. Regular enemies die so fast you wouldn't notice it, but on bosses it becomes a vital strategy. And similarly, their attacks will shove you back, but their attacks are also traveling forward themselves, and so your health will melt away unless you can figure some escape. Basically, fights in Ys 3 have a lot of burst damage. You'll either do big damage to them, or they'll do big damage to you. When I was playing, I did have to do a little bit of grinding at the start, just to be able to survive the first boss. But once I got over that hump, and honestly I probably got more stuff than I really needed, then things sped up quite a bit. I rescued the miners in the first dungeon, then made my way through the second dungeon to where I could overhear the evil plan, and got myself thrown into the volcano that makes up the third dungeon as part of that, and that's when I ran out of recording time. But by RPG standards, that's quite a bit of progress. Ys 3 got numerous follow-ups. We'll see one of the Ys 4s before this project is done, and if you don't know what that's about, well, that story will be coming along soon enough. Ys 3 also got a remake to bring it in line with the modern Ys style, and somehow I think the voice acting in the US version of that one is actually even worse than the voice acting in the old Ys 3.
I knew it! I must be dreaming! What have you...
Ys 3 is a beloved classic in Japan, though a lot of the love I found for it was directed at other versions. That choppy parallax scrolling turned off a lot of Japanese players too. I guess at this point the question for me is, which version of Ys 3 is best? And I think I'd go with the Super Famicom version. I think it just plays a bit smoother. That isn't to say that this PC Engine version is bad. The multimedia features are pretty good too. It's just that it also feels like it suffers from being the first. As the first console port of Ys 3, and with Hudson unwilling to step on Falcom's toes, a lot of the rough edges that were present in computer versions are still here, and they got polished up more on later versions. So I wouldn't say to avoid the PC Engine version of Ys 3, it's just you might have a better time with the Super Famicom or Mega Drive one.